Hey, Autistic. Hey, Deb. Oh my God. Oh my. Hey, cool gamer. Hey, mama of three. Oh my God. Yeah, I can't leave you alone, eh? Is this what I get for picking on that little arsehole? Charlie? Oh, I got like I'm pretty sure it's a hair and it's stuck in my eye. So I just got out of the shower and I've been using eye drops. Holy shit, has ever hurt. I don't know. I must have a cat hair in it. This has happened to me before, and I've had to go down the pharmacy and be like, look, looks like I got pink eye, but I don't. It's a cat hair. So that's why I'm not on my camera. Someone apparently docs nonsense on her live, so she crammed up, and Molly just went live flipping out on nonsense. Seriously? Wow. I'm so sick and tired of people doing that, doxing others. Like this is the internet. This is it's YouTube. It's supposed to be fun. Or with the true crime, bring awareness to things. Have fun, bring awareness. Stop making things so bad. Yeah, you are evil. But I think I am too. Hey Dragon. That's horrible though. I'm so sick of the doxing and the bull crap and the drama. I just want to have fun. Hey Amanda. Like tomorrow night. So for my stream tomorrow, at 7 p.m., I'm going to do a fun stream. I thought instead of all this true crime and ghosts and stuff, I was thinking we should do a fun stream. So one of my subs had mentioned to me that they think it would be funny for me to react to some funny dumbass bullshit. So I agree and I want to do it. So tomorrow night is going to be, I'll be I'll be checking on Reddit. I joined this group and it's called Hold My Beer. So it's literally one of those things where someone does the dumbass thing, is like, here, hold my beer, and they do something stupid. Yeah, so that is what I'll be doing tomorrow. So we'll have some laughs instead of getting all serious with the true crime. All right, sounds good, Dragon. I'm just going to start some reading and we're almost done. So we're going to have to watch that movie soon called Adam. Tomorrow you're going to a friend's house? Ah, gotcha. I've got one cat beside me and one cat on me. I've been watching all of that from both sides the entire time. Nonsense is absolutely not who people think. And she docs. I heard she docs Penelope. Wow. She shouldn't even have a channel either, in my honest to God opinion. Horrible. I'm not here to disagree. I'm here to be happy and love you. You're so cute. Her son is home from the Navy. Whose son? All right, I'm just going to start reading. Ugh. What the heck chapter? Okay, I'm still on the evidence. Oh, I see. Sorry, Dragon. Well, that's awesome. He stated that he has no preference as to race, and some of his victims have been. Okay, wait. I need to figure out who the hell we're talking about here. Okay, I think we're. Oh, right. We're still talking about Henry Lee Lucas. So it says, according to his psychiatric profile, Lucas Lucas, who had a glass left eye that continually secretes fluid, causing matter around the eye, stated that he did not feel comfortable having sex with women who were alive and practiced necrophilia. Huge trigger warning. At times he would have oh yeah, I'm not reading that part. Yep, I remember. He stated that he has no preference as to race, and some of his victims have been white, some black, some Indian, some Hispanic, and some Asian. He stated that the reason he killed all those women was for sex. He admitted that he derives more satisfaction from having sex with a dead person. Wow. Oh no, your crock, that is the best thing in the world. I just used my crock pot yesterday for that pork roast. Aw. So he derives more satisfaction from having sex with a dead person. This is disgusting. He stated that he has never killed a male and would have no reason to do so. He was known to bite nipples off the breasts and mutilate the body. Oh my god. I'll have to show you who Henry Lee Lucas is after this. Lucas apparently has a phobia about socks. What? Hey, Teresa. Said the psychiatric report that Lucas apparently has a phobia with socks since he does not wear them at any time and will not wash his feet. Wow. But she whines she's going to be doxxed, and suddenly, right after Molly claims she liked a post of hers, Nonsense gets doxxed on her own live. I think the two played off each other. Hell yeah. You've got 3 crock pots? Not sure how that happened. Have chicken and potatoes in it now. All right, Amanda. Lucas, who had done time in prisons in Virginia, Ohio, and in Michigan, committed his first murder at the age of 15. Wow. Can you imagine 15 years old? His first hard time, a 10-year term, began in 1960 in the Jackson, Michigan State Penitentiary after he was convicted at the age of 23 of murdering his mother. Oh, Jesus. Another one with mother issues. So was Ted Bundy. You don't like them that way? Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole met in Michigan in 1976, and the two had traveled together sporadically in the years since, more frequently after the May 1981 death of Toole's mother. The picture that the cops were piecing together, based on police reports as well as information that the two were volunteering, was not pretty. They had stabbed some victims repeatedly, cut others deeply along the arms, thighs, and legs. In some cases, disemboweled them. At least one victim, according to a police report, was decapitated, while the head of another was carried in their car for several days. These people are fucking monsters. There were occasional attempts to incinerate the victims' bodies, also efforts to cannibalize them. What the hell? A second police psychiatry report said that if Lucas had sex with a woman either before or after killing her, Toole would then mutilate the victim due to jealousy and anger. I don't understand why they weren't locked up sooner. Or the fact that Lucas killed his mother and then killed someone when he was 15. Why the fuck is he out? Sorry, guys, it's so gruesome. We're almost at the end of this book, though. While the dim-witted Toole was sometimes vague about the details of killing, I got to thinking of it like smoking a cigarette, he would later say. Lucas, the brains of the operation, tended to recall specifics. I can't get the people out of my mind, he told one interviewer. It's like watching a movie over and over. Also, unlike Toole, Lucas was almost exclusively heterosexual. He likes girls. Toole once told the cops, in fact, the only reason he would let me have sex with him was to keep me from raising hell with him. Oh my God. For a time in the early months of 1983, Toole and Lucas had traveled with Toole's young niece and nephew. Later, after he and Toole split up, Lucas, who had been having a sexual relationship with the 13-year-old girl, got into an argument with her one day. Then he stabbed and dismembered her. We had been all over Texas, and she ended up getting killed, he later said. There really wasn't no sense in it. That's the only girl that I can honestly say that I really loved. Wow. That was his 13-year-old cousin, that which whom Henry Lee Lucas had married. Oh my God. In spite of all that, Otis Toole cared to have only one thing on the wall of his jail cell in Jacksonville, a photograph of Henry Lee Lucas. The one he confided to, a prison psychiatrist, that he was in love with, a man, Toole said, whom he would do anything for. Ruthless and usually unemployed, Lucas and Toole would find a car and head out for days or weeks, covering thousands of miles at a time. From the spring of 1981 until the time of Adam's murder at the end of July, for example, police records showed that they had been in Louisiana on April 4th, in Jacksonville on May 13th, in Houston on June 15th, back to Jacksonville June 19th, in Wilmington, Delaware on July 11th, and then in Pikesville, Maryland on July 22nd, where Lucas was taken into custody and held until October 7th. Matthews knew the HPD investigators had been unable to account for Toole's whereabouts for the 5 days surrounding Adam's abduction. The next order of business then was to see if their work still held up. Early on the morning of Saturday, July 25th, 1981, Toole had stepped off a bus in Jacksonville. He was then unaccounted for until the following Friday, July 31st, when receipts showed he had rented a room in Jacksonville. Now, as then, it seemed that no one could remember seeing him in the interim. In fact, no hard evidence placed him anywhere during those crucial 5 days. I didn't find that he had gotten, say, a traffic ticket in Daytona, said Smith. So is it possible that Otis Toole was in Hollywood for a couple of days on July 27, 1981? Absolutely. It's only a 5.5-hour drive south of Jacksonville. When Otis Toole was taken into custody in the Duval County Sheriff's Office back in 1983, his handler was James Buddy Terry, a local detective who had known Toole through his various scrapes with the law for the past 18 years. The familiarity made for a relationship of sorts. Terry knew what a weird character Toole was. Toole, for his part, seemed to trust Terry. It only made sense, therefore, that Terry should be the one to help coordinate appointments for all the law enforcement types who were descending on Duval. One of them was Paul Ruiz, an investigator with the Travis County, Texas District Attorney's Office, who had flown over to question Toole about 4 unsolved homicides in Austin. With so many cops and detectives trying to get in to see Toole, Ruiz learned that he was going to have to wait a while. In the meantime, Buddy Terry asked if he might sit in on some of the other interviews, helping brief the visiting cops on how best to handle Toole. Over that week, Ruiz got to know Otis pretty well, like almost everyone who forgot the experience. Sorry, it says Ruiz got to know Otis pretty well. Like almost everyone who came in contact with Toole, Ruiz would not soon forget the experience. Otis was weird to begin with. Ruiz saw that. He rambled and he liked to bullshit the guys who were coming in to interview him. That's just how he was. You really couldn't tell a lot of times whether or not he was telling the truth. But after a while, Ruiz would tell when Toole was going to lie and kind of pull their leg. So once he started, Ruiz would say, "Now come on, Otis, don't be doing that to these guys." Then Toole would laugh and kind of come back to being straight with them. Ruiz remembers Toole as an uneducated and virtually illiterate, but also a cagey and very street smart. He had to be considering the kinds of things that he'd been getting away with. Toole also liked to play games. He would say the most grotesque things just to see how people would react, going on and on about how he and Lucas cut women's breasts, for example. That's nice. Still, the cops were learning that patience with Toole had its rewards. If they were willing to wade through the bullshit, the payoff was sometimes the solution of a case. Toole was jerking one Colorado detective around one day when the cop finally decided to just put it to him straight. Otis, have you ever been to the Denver area? Oh, yeah, I've been through there, Toole said. I remember driving. In fact, I ran out of gas in the real nice neighborhood and I didn't have that much money. I know what you want to know. You want to know how that woman died that was in bed. Well, I needed some money, so I walked up to the window, looked inside, and I just shot her through the screen. When the woman didn't die right away, Toole said, he had tied her up and stabbed her. The Colorado detective's mind was completely blown. He knew full well the case that Toole was talking about, and every one of the details was true. During those interviews in Jacksonville, Toole was providing a lot of sick detail, some almost beyond comprehension, about his and Lucas's exploits. These guys are disgusting. About how they had left a knife blade sticking out of the top of one victim's head, how Toole had ejaculated twice in a car's dashboard, while Lucas was, oh my God, raping a 19-year-old girl in the back seat. What the fuck? This is fucked up. About how the blood flew all over when he shot a girl through the wrist and she was driving down a highway. How later, when he dragged her body out of it, he noticed that her car had a pinstripe down the side and that she had been wearing a college-type ring on the pointing finger of her right hand. All details from right out of the blue. All details that actually police files in 3 different jurisdictions showed were entirely correct. No worries, Mama. Buddy Terry knew that Toole was certainly capable of lying and that he was also enjoying all the attention he was getting. But he had known Toole for nearly 2 decades now and had never once seen him confess to a crime he didn't commit. Just before noon on Monday, October 10, 1983, Steve Kendrick, a Florida detective who was in Jacksonville to interview Toole about a murder in the town of Rockledge near Cocoa Beach, introduced himself by saying that he was from Brevard County. Toole, he remembers, looked pretty bad, dirty and unshaven, with bad teeth and a terrible stench. This is really, wow. The two made small talk for a while, and then Toole began rambling about the 65 murders that he said he had been party to. What most struck Kendrick about it was how casual Toole seemed, like two people talking about the weather, he wrote in his report. Still, Kendrick wasn't getting anywhere about the Rockledge case, so after about a half an hour, he shut off his tape recorder and started packing up to leave. At that point, Toole looked at Kendrick and asked if he was from Fort Lauderdale. No, Kendrick said, he wasn't. Are you sure? Toole said. Kendrick assumed that Toole was confusing Brevard County in the central part of the state with Broward, the county farther south that includes Fort Lauderdale. Otis, for the last hour, we've been talking about Cocoa Beach and Rockledge, Kendrick said. I'm from Broward County. What's the matter? Are you expecting someone from Lauderdale? Yeah, Toole said. Yeah, I am. What's the matter? Did you get into something down there? Yeah, I did. At that point, according to Kendrick, Toole's whole demeanor suddenly changed. Where he had been relaxed, jovial almost, he now, in the words of Kendrick's report, held the sides of his chair, shifted from side to side, and started looking into the floor. Reporting agent felt for a man to admit involvement in 65 murders but get upset about Fort Lauderdale, it had to be something appalling. The abrupt shift told Kendrick that he had stumbled into something and that rather than taint somebody else's case, he'd better back out of it. He left the interrogation room and immediately told Buddy Terry what had happened. Terry, who was getting ready to leave for the Louisiana Task Force conference on the Toole-Lucas crime spree, had conversation with Toole, who asked him if he had ever been to Lauderdale. Why do you ask, Otis? Terry said. Because, Toole replied, something had happened down there 2 or 3 years back that he wanted to speak to someone about, the murder of a boy. At the time, Terry had no idea what Toole was talking about, but when he mentioned the exchange to Kendrick, the Brevard detective did. The something that Otis Toole was referring to might be the Adam Walsh case. Kendrick told Buddy Terry about the exchange, and the next morning, Tuesday, October 11th at 9 a.m., Kendrick notified the HPD Detective Division. They didn't seem particularly interested in the information. Like, oh well, we all know about that, he recalls. We were all thinking, hey, did you guys just wake up or something? I was surprised that they weren't more receptive. To me, it seemed like it should have been a priority call. A week later, on Tuesday, October 18th, 1983, Lieutenant Joe Cummings, a Louisiana homicide investigator who had set up the Lucas Toole Task Force conference, arrived in Jacksonville along with a colleague. Sergeant J. Villa, who was on assignment for the parish sheriff's office. The two were interested in seeing if Toole had anything to do with the brutal murder of a 16-year-old girl in their jurisdiction. Cummings said Villa's first interview with Toole began at 10 that morning. Toole was remarkably casual in talking about the murders he had committed until the talk turned to the murder of blacks. When Villa asked Toole why he was reluctant to talk about those killings, Toole said that he was worried that if he knew about them, black inmates might try to kill him. Villa asked if he was reluctant to talk about killing children for the same reason. According to Villa's written report, Toole suddenly smiled and stated, "You are talking about the kid that got his head cut off around West Palm Beach, Florida." Like Buddy Terry before them, Villa and Cummings had no idea what Toole was talking about, but they let him keep talking. He said that he had abducted a 6 or 7-year-old boy from a shopping center near West Palm Beach and taken him to a remote area along the turnpike, where he decapitated him and threw his head into a canal. Toole emphasized that he had not performed the actual murder himself. He told them that Henry Lee Lucas had. Cummings and Villa immediately called Buddy Terry into the room, and Toole kept right on going. After abducting the boy, he said, he and Lucas had driven about an hour to an isolated dirt road leading into a swampy, wooded area, where he said he decapitated the boy with a machete or a bayonet. He then placed the child's head inside the car, a white 1973 Cadillac four-door with a black vinyl top and black interior, and headed south to Florida Keys. Toole told Cummings that at the point trigger warning. At the point that he hit the boy hard in the face, not to hurt him, but because he wouldn't stop crying. During the conversation, the three watched as Toole's body language did a major turnaround. He suddenly got subdued and quiet, staring at the floor and rocking in his chair. There was striking change in Toole's emotional attitude and behavior, Villa wrote, which was not being noticed in any of the prior interviews. Afterward in the hallway, Cummings remembers, I walked out and said, "Who the hell is this kid in Florida he keeps talking about?" On Wednesday, October 19th, it was Paul Ruiz's turn, and during the first official interview with Toole, the subject of child killing came up again. "Oh, I would never hurt any kids, you know," Toole said. "I would never do anything like that." Ruiz noticed how quiet Toole suddenly became. His legs started jumping up and down as if he were nervous. He stopped talking and clasped his hands around between his thighs. He looked at Ruiz and said, "I would never do anything to any kids." Then he trailed off. He didn't say anything for 4 or 5 seconds, which, as Ruiz knew, was unusual for Otis. He was denying that he had ever done anything to a little kid, but Ruiz didn't believe him. He basically thought that Toole could have done anything to anybody at any time. Ruiz's written report included one final exchange of how at the end of the interview, Toole suddenly volunteered that he would never have killed a young child. Although he said, "I could kill a 14 or 15-year-old and it could have been in Florida." Holy crap, these guys are, wow. "And if he had done such a thing," Toole added, "I wouldn't necessarily know the exact location." It wasn't until 3:10 p.m. on October 19th, more than a week after Kendrick first notified the Hollywood police, that they finally heard back from Ron Hicksman. "We were all thinking, what the hell is wrong with these guys?" Steve Kendrick remembers. "How could it take a neighboring police jurisdiction 8 days to track down a lead about the notorious unsolved homicide of a child? A case that, it seemed, they had unsolicited confession for." When the HPD reached Terry, he repeated the message Kendrick had left the preceding week, that he had a suspect who was saying that 2 years before he had abducted a young boy from the Sears Mall in Fort Lauderdale and had decapitated him. This time, 6 hours later, Hoffman and Hickman arrived in person at the Duval jail. It sounds to me that these, definitely the HPD, the police department, the Hollywood Police Department, don't know what the hell they're doing. They completely ruin this case. They just don't care. And that really bothers me. Not only for Adam, I don't understand this. It was immediately apparent that the two didn't have any intention of sharing information or buddying up with other cops. That was all right. Proper police procedure dictated that they play it close to the vest. But what was irritated some of the other cops, who after all were trying to help out on a case that didn't even belong to them, was HPD cops' attitude. I figured. Disgusting. Hoffman's nickname at HPD was, like my father's, Gentleman Jack, but he and Hickman didn't seem very gentlemanly, at least not to the cops in Jacksonville. It wasn't just that the two of them didn't introduce themselves, it was that they barely even said hello. You get the idea, right? Anyway, says one cop who was there. They were too big for that. They were wearing their nice dress suits, and their attitude was, "What are we even doing here? We heard all this before." Wow. At 10 a.m. that night, an hour after they arrived, Hoffman and Hickman took their first sworn statement from Toole. During the interview with Buddy, Terry sitting in, Toole claimed that he and Lucas, driving a 1973 black over white Cadillac, had traveled down to Fort Lauderdale a couple of years before, slept in the car, and paid cash for gas. They had gotten into town around noon and gone to a single-level mall that has a Sears store in it. How did he know it was Sears, they asked. Because I know a Sears when I see a Sears, Toole replied. They could have got this all from the news because it was all over the news. Adam Walsh, that case was huge. So I'm thinking that's how Toole got it, just so he can get money. Remember, he wanted money from John Walsh. He was asking for money, and that's why he stated he unlived his son. What was it, 5,000? I believe he wanted, because he was going to be put to death anyway. So he's like, oh, I might as well do this for some money. I don't know, just gross. Toole said that he might also have gone window shopping in the mall itself. He remembered a wig shop where he had stopped to look at the wigs. Could we be talking about a beauty parlor? He was asked. Hey, Selah. Okay, you're just gonna listen then, Selah? That's okay. I'm finding out a lot more, Selah, about, I don't know if you know the serial killer. His name is Henry Lee Lucas. He did team up with Otis Toole, and I did read that book. It was about Henry Lee Lucas. And I remember Otis being mentioned in that, but I don't remember or recall anything about Adam Walsh. But the novel was mainly focused on Henry Lee Lucas, though. It was pretty messed up. I'm just wondering. This is kind of strange. No, said Toole, regular wigs that you put on your head. And had he actually gone into the Sears store? No, said Toole. I didn't go into the Sears store, but I could have went in it, came back out, and forgot I went in it. I do that sometimes. Part of the reason for his vague recollection on that point, he said, was that he had been drinking heavily that day and popping pills. Oh, my teenage daughter brought me a new computer, so I have not downloaded it, but yes, I do know about Otis Toole. Okay. Yeah, Otis, what do you know anything about Henry Lee Lucas, though? Because apparently he's being, well, in this book anyways, Otis is implying that Henry Lee Lucas was a part of this unaliving of Adam Walsh as well. This is insane. According to Hoffman's summary report, Toole then described the boy he had abducted, whom he had first spotted outside the store in the parking lot, as being about 7 to 10 years old, with blonde hair, curly, and wearing blue jeans, a blue shirt, and sneakers. That's not true, though. Oh, you do? Okay. A transcript of the interview shows that when asked what kind of hair the little boy had, Toole said, I'd say it could have been curly or wavy or in between. I'd say it wasn't no straight-bodied hair. Was the child in the front seat with you and Henry, or was he in the back? Hoffman asked. If you snatch up somebody, you damn sure ain't going to let him get into no back seat, said Toole. After abducting the boy, Toole said, he and Lucas had driven northbound on Florida Turnpike for about an hour and a half. When the boy became uncontrollable, Lucas told Toole to pull over. Toole said he later found a dirt road along the turnpike and removed the boy from the car. Trigger warning, big time. You've heard, Megan has mentioned them to you as well? Okay. This book is it's hard. It's a hard book to read. Toole removed the boy from the car as the boy lay face down on the ground. Toole's saying that Henry Lee Lucas is the one that decapitated him with 3 or 4 blows. Toole had been drunk when all this occurred, and when they asked him why he was confessing to the crime, he said that he wanted to tell about it and then forget it. Okay, Selah, that would be good. I'd love to hear what your input and Megan's input as well. During the interview, Toole was shown a photograph of the turnpike in the area of the canal where Adam's remains were found. He said it looked familiar. When he was shown Adam's picture, Toole said that he didn't think it was the same boy. Although it could have been because I was too fucked up in the head, I ain't really sure. Maybe that was because I was drunk and I ain't drinking now. This guy's disgusting. Both of them are. Toole was then shown a photograph of Adam's remains. For a long time, he didn't say anything. Then finally he said, since the kid's head is wet, it does kind of look like the kid some. Because the kid was sweaty in the parking lot and his hair was all sweaty. That was Toole's story. Some of the information was right, some was wrong. When at 10:47 p.m., Hoffman and Hickman stepped out of the interview room that night, leaving Toole with Buddy Terry, they didn't seem impressed. They were saying, nah, this guy don't know anything. Same old stuff. He doesn't really have anything to say. Paul Ruiz remembers. A few minutes later, Terry came out to tell Hoffman and Hickman the same thing he had just told Toole, that Otis must be lying about at least one thing. Records in Maryland showed that during the time Toole was talking about, from July 22nd until October 7th, 1981, Henry Lucas had been in police custody in Baltimore. Now, said Terry, Toole wanted to give another statement. Of course he did. Yeah, because I don't recall reading. I remember reading the book, like I said, on Henry Lee Lucas, and I don't recall anything to do with Adam Walsh whatsoever. I know that him and Toole are connected. Absolutely. They've done unaliving together. Yeah. I do not believe at all it was Otis Toole that did this. No way. One thing was clear to almost every cop who ever interviewed Toole. It was going to be an uphill battle, and he was going to sensationalize all kinds of things. Anyone who had done interrogations saw people like that all the time. The best way to deal with Toole was to let him ramble on for a while, then tell him, now come on, Otis, don't tell me something happened that way when I know it didn't. He would say, okay, yeah, it really didn't happen that way. Come back down to earth and start giving you the truth. The one thing you didn't want to do was act as if you thought he was an idiot. Yeah, exactly. They had nothing to do with this. Absolutely, 100%. Hoffman and Hickman re-entered the interrogation room at 12:30 a.m. This time Toole said that he had abducted the little boy himself. That when the child started crying, he had hit him in the eye, knocking him unconscious. That he had driven out of the mall to the turnpike and headed north. That he pulled off the turnpike into the dirt road to kill the child because he was a smart kid and would probably be able to identify him. That he had decapitated the boy, put his head in the car, and scattered the rest of his body without burying it. When asked what kind of weapon he had used, Toole said a bayonet. Sick fuck. Hoffman and Hickman were, of course, familiar with Adam's autopsy report. Ronald Wright, the medical examiner, had made a number of findings 2 years before. That before death, there had been a broken nose and injury between the eyes. That Adam was already dead and lying face down when he was decapitated. That there was 5 blows to the base of the skull. That the killer was right-handed and would have had to use both hands. The first question is, what you cooking? With those facts in mind, the two started asking Toole about what he had done. How many blows? With one hand or both? Where? Down low or up high? Toole said that he had had both hands on the weapon, that had taken 4 or 5 strokes, not down by the shoulders, but up, close to the head. That afterward, he had traveled north on the turnpike for about 10 minutes before stopping to throw the head into a canal that had a little wooden bridge. Are you right-handed or left-handed? They asked. Right-handed, said Toole. During the interview, which went on for 90 minutes, they also asked Toole why he lied about Lucas being involved. He had done it, Toole said, to get even with his ass. It was at the end of the second interview, Ruiz remembers that Hoffman and Hickman came rushing out, got on the phone, and started really getting involved in the situation. That's when they decided they were going to have to take Otis down to Hollywood. The next day, Thursday, October 20th, Ruiz spoke to Toole again. Had strict police procedure been followed, no one would have breathed another word to him and about Adam Walsh for fear of tainting HPD's case. But that isn't the way things were. A lot of different interviewers were around, quite a bit of excitement, and Toole was volunteering information to anyone who would listen. He talked to Ruiz about going to the shopping center that day, how he had gotten the little boy into his car, but he had not planned to kill him at first. That what he actually wanted was to keep a little boy for himself and raise him. He really wanted a little baby to raise, Toole said, because he knew how to change diapers. What the fuck kind of what? Wow. You're making fried shrimp? Tula also told Ruiz the rest of it, that Adam was a baseball fan and that he wanted to get out of the car, and that he kept saying that if Otis would just take him back, he wouldn't tell anyone. And that's when Adam kept yelling. It had gotten on his nerves that he backhanded him several times, hitting him in the head. Toole said that he had decided to kill Adam when he realized Adam was too smart and might be able to identify him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have read that, and I've also seen that as well. You're absolutely right. And that's what these cops, the ones that know him anyways, one of them has known him for like 15 years. So he knows when he lies, absolutely. And he'll say, um, he'll just tell Otis, come on, stop lying. I know you're lying. And then he'll start telling the truth. Toole recalled pretty clearly what he had done to the little boy at Indian River, but he didn't seem able to remember exactly what he had done with the. His exact words in the pond where the head was found. Then Toole asked Ruiz if the pond had been dredged. I know they must have found blood on the dock, he said. By that time, Toole had heard that he was going to be flown down south to Hollywood the next day, then taken up to Indian River. His last words to Ruiz, in fact, were that he would try his best to help these Hollywood guys find the body. At 9 a.m. the following day, Friday, October 21st, Toole, along with Hoffman and Terry, arrived at Perry Airport in Pembroke Pines, near Hollywood. First, Toole was taken to HPT. Then, at 3:30 p.m., he was put into a Chevy high-top van, and, to test him, the cops drove to a Sears store at the Broward Mall. Toole said it wasn't the place when they pulled into the Hollywood Mall. He said he was pretty sure that this was it, although he had been pretty drunk at the time and was having a hard time remembering the sequence of events. At the mall, Toole pointed correctly to the west entrance, describing it as where he picked up the little boy. He had lured him into the car with candy and toys, he said, and had used the driver's side control to lock the car's 4 power windows. Oh no, Deb. Then he redirected the driver toward what he said had been his route on Hollywood Boulevard around Military Circle, about 10 minutes farther to the entrance to the Florida Turnpike. After the van drove northbound for about an hour and a half, as Toole said he had done, he pointed out an area off the turnpike that he said looked familiar. The area where he had pulled off and decapitated the little boy, who was by then no longer moving. I gave up doing shrimp. Hoffman later told Dick Hines, who had not come along, that on the turnpike, just as the van was passing the precise spot where Adam's remains had been found, Toole, out of the corner of his eye, seemed to shoot a glance toward it. Did you see something? They asked. Well, I think I might. But again, said Hines, Toole didn't say anything positive. That exchange is not mentioned in the case file, nor for a time was the input of Hollywood Police Department Detective Larry Hoisington, who was the van's designated driver that day. Wow, so they kept information again. Imagine that. Yeah, I love grits. Oh my god. Hey, Benita. No, me neither, Deb. Nope. Oh my god, I love cheddar cheese grits. They're so good. According to Hoisington, Toole said that when he first pulled off the turnpike, he hadn't paid a toll, which meant something to Hoisington, who was particularly familiar with that stretch of road. He remembered that 2 years before, there had been a construction site near mile marker 126, when a temporary access road leading into it. At the time, a fence around it had been removed, which meant that there was nothing to block the car from pulling off the northbound lanes. In fact, Hoisington recalled, at the time it was the only place for miles that you could exit without having to pay a toll. Hoisington never mentioned any of that to Toole, but later that afternoon, just as the van near the construction site, near the mile marker 126, Toole suddenly said that this looked like where he had first turned off the turnpike the first time when he decapitated the little boy. Hoisington stopped the van and pulled off onto the road. Yes, said Toole, this sure looked like the place. Hoisington pulled into the access road and everyone climbed out. Days later, Toole had described the place as a triangle road, and sure enough, there was a fork in the road right there beyond them. Oh, I want to eat that so bad, Selah. That sounds amazing. Yes, cheddar cheese grits with Cajun shrimp. I don't even like shrimp. I loved shrimp. Like the shrimp that you dip in that mayo sauce. I was using when I was pregnant with my son. Like I would buy it. I don't even like shrimp, so it's really strange. Now, if it's near me, ugh, yuck. But that sounds delicious, and I'd try it. I think the kid they found is the one he killed, but it wasn't Adam. I stand by what I said. The soul traded him, and things just worked differently. Yeah, I agree. Yep. At that point, a Florida trooper stopped by to see what was going on, and Hoisington double-checked his recollection. Had this been a construction site back in July 1981? Yes, said the trooper, and also the only exit from the turnpike at the time that didn't have a toll booth. Talking with Hoisington, Toole said that he had placed the little boy's head on the rear floor of the car behind the driver's seat and pulled back out on the turnpike northbound. After driving nowhere for about 10 minutes, he said he had pulled off the turnpike again and walked toward a canal, out onto a small wooden dock and thrown the head in. He wasn't sure if it was a bridge or a dock exactly, but it was made out of wood and stuck out over the water. Oh, has it been a stressful day? I'm sorry, Benita. Thanks, Selah. That'll be awesome. The group headed north on the turnpike to see if Toole could point out that area. 10 minutes later, about 4 miles up the road, just as he said it would be, Toole seemed to think they were at the right spot. He told Hoisington to stop a canal here, which was not far from the mile marker 130. When they all got out of the van, Toole looked around and said it looked like the right location. He then walked over to what Hoisington, who was seeing time, would later describe as a wooden walkway type bridge into the canal. It's been the most Mondayest Monday ever. He then walked over to Hoisington, who was seeing it for the first time, and later described it as the walk type bridge. Toole said that this was where he had gotten rid of the boy's head. Hoisington had no idea if any of that, what Toole was saying, jibbed with the facts. Not, that is, until Hoffman came up and told him that 2 years before, this was where Adam's remains had been found. After a couple of hours at the canal, the group then drove back to the construction site to look for evidence. For an hour and a half, while others searched, Hoisington sat with Toole, who started talking to him. The only reason he had killed the little boy, Toole said, was that he wouldn't stop crying for his mother and father, that the only way he knew to keep him quiet was to kill him. Hoisington asked why he had kept the little boy's head. Toole said that he wasn't really sure, maybe at first as some sort of keepsake. Yeah, nice fucking keepsake. Are you serious? Wow, these serial killers just don't, no remorse, no nothing. I have empathy. We all do. And when it comes to reading what these guys do, I'm speechless because I'm speechless. And the stuff that comes out of their mouth that they've done, and they're like okay with it, talking about it like they're talking about, what type of milk they drink. Wow. So this dickhead Toole says, that he wasn't really sure why he kept the little boy's head at first. Oh, yeah, sort of a keepsake. No, they don't have a soul. But then he got scared about having it in his car, which is why he pulled off the road again and threw it into the canal. Toole kept saying how drunk he had been at the time. Later, after telling Hoisington about some of the other murders he had committed, he said that the only one he was ever sorry for was Adam Walsh's. Detective Larry Hoisington's information about the Indian River trip certainly seemed compelling to Mark Smith when he heard about it, but it was not in the case file, not until October of 95, during the reinvestigation of Adam's case, when Hoisington was finally interviewed about it. Up until that time, he had never filed a report on what he saw and heard that day, for one simple reason, he told Mark Smith, because none of the detectives on the case had ever asked him to. What a sloppy mess this whole case was. They fucked this shit right up. On Friday, October 21st at 9:30 p.m., Hoffman and Hickman interviewed Toole again for nearly 2 hours. Again, he talked about the crime, about parking his car at the Sears store that day, about how warm the weather had been. He might actually have gone into Sears store itself that day, he said, instead of just cruising through the mall. Referring to his first interview with Toole, Hickman said, "Can you tell me how you describe the child? His looks." I said his hair didn't look straight looking, like little waves in it maybe. Yes, said Toole. It could have been because it was hot outside, you know. He was kind of sweaty from the heat. On that day, Toole had drunk a half case of beer and taken Quaaludes. I wasn't feeling no pain, he said. He had kidnapped the little boy to take him back to Jacksonville and raise him as his own. That is such a fucked up thing to say. Why this particular boy? Hoffman asked. Because, said Toole, he was well spoken. He could carry on a conversation, acted kind of like he was real smart. Toole talked about how I told him I was going to take him to Jacksonville with me, and he spoke up later and said he didn't want to go. He wanted me to take him back where I got him from, and I told him no. Then he was yelling that he wanted to get out of the car. Then, said Toole, was when he had hit him real hard in the stomach one time, and I slapped him clean across his face. When you say across his face, Hoffman asked, do you remember what part of his face you struck him in? Across the eyes. Was that with an open hand or closed fist? Both. After that, the little boy didn't wake up again, but Toole was still afraid that he would be able to identify him, which is when he found a place to pull off the road. Recounting the details, Toole began to cry. Oh, yeah, I bet he fucking cried all right. By now, the press had gotten wind of Otis Toole's confession, and things were heating up. Assistant Chief thought the best thing to do was to go public with the news. So on October 21st, he called a press conference announcing that Adam Walsh's killer had been dead and that Otis Toole would be arraigned the next day for the crime. In Hollywood, the news came as a welcome relief. The next day, when the paper arrived at the Hollywood home of Arlene and Wayne Mayer, their 14-year-old daughter, Heidi, took one look at the front page and hollered out, "Mom, look, is that the guy?" As soon as Arlene Mayer saw the photograph of the scruffy, gap-toothed man in the paper, she knew exactly what her daughter was talking about. 2 years before, around 6 p.m. on a warm evening at the end of July, Arlene, her daughter, and her husband made a quick stop at Kmart, not far from the Hollywood Mall. Wayne, in his work clothes, said he'd wait in the car. As Arlene and Heidi, then 12 years old, walked across the parking lot, they noticed a weird-looking guy watching them. He got to the front entrance of the store before they did, and was still watching them. He seemed to be talking on the outdoor payphone, except they noticed he hadn't dropped any coins in the slot. Inside, Arlene went to the layaway desk while Heidi headed for the toy department. A few minutes later, Arlene saw Heidi running toward her, screaming, "Mom, Mom, it's that guy again." In the toy department, the man had come up to Heidi, pushing an empty shopping cart and asking if she wanted to go for a ride. Arlene, by now really frightened, tracked down a security guard, but by that time the man had disappeared. For a long time, the two were afraid to leave the store. Finally, they spotted Wayne walking up to the entrance and ran out to tell him what had happened. They were both shaking, he recalls, scared to death. That night, Arlene reported the incident to the Hollywood police, who seemed interested only in what kind of car the man was driving. Arlene hadn't noticed the model, she said, and Heidi hadn't either. And that was the end of it. Because just a couple of days later, what had happened to Arlene and Heidi, Mayer got lost in the explosion of news about abduction of the little Adam Walsh case. Wow. You would think these fucking idiot police officers would know that these two cases would be linked. Otis tried to pick up Tool. Otis tried to pick up Tool. That makes no sense. Otis Tool tried to pick up Heidi, the little girl. That was 12 at the time. And then 2 days later, Adam goes missing. I mean, wow. Not until 2 years later, there in the newspaper, did Heidi see the man's face again in the photograph over a story about his being charged with the murder of Adam Walsh. Wow. The papers had said the guy's name was Otis Toole. Again, Arlene Mayer telephoned the HPD to tell them what had happened. This time on October 24th, two detectives, Jack Hoffman and Ron Hickman, came over to interview them. It was a rough experience, Arlene remembers. The detectives frightened Heidi. Holy shit. These I don't know. I don't even know how they were cops. These guys are awful. They're mean. They think they're better than anything and everyone, and they should have been fired. They kept hammering Heidi about what kind of car the man had driven, and Heidi kept saying that she didn't know, except that it was a good-sized car, not a small one. Still, in separate sworn statements, Arlene and her daughter told what they knew, that the man had thin hair, used the word ain't, was between 35 and 40, and was scruffy looking. Also, according to Heidi, it had looked as if one of his front teeth was missing. Both she and her mother picked the man's picture out of an official photo lineup. All the pieces seemed to fit, with one possible exception, the time frame. The Mayers recalled that the incident happened about 2 days before Adam's abduction, either on a Friday or a Saturday. They were sure that because those were the only days they ever went shopping. What the Mayers had no way of knowing, of course, was that Otis Toole could not have been in Hollywood on Friday, July 24th. His bus from Newport News had not gotten him into Jacksonville until early Saturday, the 25th. If you factor in the 5-hour car trip, he could not have been in Hollywood much before early afternoon. Recently, Wayne Meyer, who was never interviewed by the police, said again that he was sure the incident had taken place on a Friday because he was working construction at the time and was still in his work clothes. He had been given too grimy even to go into the store, which meant positive that it had been a Friday. Positive, that is, that until he was asked one final question, Wayne, is it possible that you ever worked on a Saturday? Why, sure, he said, I work Saturdays all the time. Today, Heidi Mayer, now 28 and the mother of two, knows that the man she saw that day was Otis Toole. Nothing, she says, will ever change my mind. She also understands the full implication of the fact, as she puts it, I'm the one that got away. That must be hard for her too, just thinking, like, she's older now, she's got 2 children. Oh. Arlene Mayer is just as certain as her daughter. Still, she's frustrated that she doesn't have a clear picture in her mind of the man's car, sitting, as it was, out there at the edge of the parking lot. Only that it was a big and light-colored and kind of beat-up looking, a hillbilly car that looked as if someone had been living in it. Yeah, I know, right? It's like, wow. I mean, her husband says that she always described the car as being white. Arlene says she doesn't remember that or much else about it, even the model, except what I told the police before, she says, still turning it over in her mind, that it was something like an old T-Bird or a Cadillac. That's the thing. When something tragic happens to you, you never forget, especially faces. You just don't. I believe Heidi and her mother 100% absolutely. Otis tried to kidnap her. After Toole's initial confession back in 1963, Hoffman and Hickman spent a lot of time trying to find out how Toole, if he was making it all up, could have gotten a hold of so many telling details of the crime. They knew he couldn't read, but maybe there had been some other way. One hunch was that he had gotten them from Adam's made-for-TV movie, which aired at 9 p.m. on the night of October 10th, 1983, the night after Toole first spoke with Kendrick. That's what I was saying. He obviously got the information, which wouldn't be hard because it was all over the damn place. They made a movie and everything. It was on America's Most Wanted. Yeah. Toole already denied seeing the movie, which meant nothing. But as the detectives learned from interviews with 5 of Toole's fellow inmates a few weeks later, the only thing anyone was watching on TV at the Duval jail that night was the Monday night football game. According to transcripts, a number of those inmates had some other interesting recollections about Toole. One, Julius Wilkes, who had known Toole in Jacksonville and shared a cell with him just before he was taken down to Lauderdale, once heard Toole talk about having killed a little boy. He was saying, "They found the head. I hope the body ain't where I put it," recalled Wilkes, who at the time had known nothing about the crime. "I do remember him saying that. I hope the body ain't there. How did he know the body and the head were separated? This is what made me say, I gotta go watch this son of a bitch." Toole said Wilkes kept asking questions about the jail and how the dudes in there would take him if he was a child killer. He was really frightened about that part. Like he was worrying about his life. Whenever Toole talked about adults he had killed, Wilkes said, he was boastful, but when it came to the kid, he was like hurting all the guys in the cell felt that he had gotten guilt struck. Another inmate, Bobby Leroy Jones, claimed that one day Toole started talking about his niece. He said he knew she was going to get killed, but he didn't give a damn. He just sat down on his bed and started laughing about it. "I just figured the guy was out of his head. Everybody in there thought he was going crazy, the way he would talk about killing people and laughing and getting mad about it and starting all over again." A third inmate, James Poole, said that Toole had once said that he was in the child repossession business and that he had talked about having had a 7 or 8-year-old son in Broward County, whom he once dropped off somewhere along the highway during a drive into Jacksonville. Wow. That's kind of like what you were saying, Deb and Selah, about the child repossessing, the trafficking of children. And a fourth, Gilbert Boyd, remembered that Toole once told him he had murdered a little boy down in West Palm Beach and that Toole thought the boy had been a policeman's son. These last two stories could have been, as the cops seemed to think, just more evidence of Toole's bullshit, but they could also have contained some grain of truth of the time in Toole's hazy, booze-soaked recollection that he did drive a young son up from Lauderdale. And all of that little boy's hat, white with a brim and way too big for him, kind of like what a police captain might give to his son. It never seemed to occur to the cops that most maddening part about Toole's confessions is his inconsistencies and fuzzy recall might actually have a reasonable explanation. Any normal person would certainly remember having committed a homicide, but to Toole, as he himself once said, murder was so more memorable than smoking a cigarette. Toole said, as he himself once said, murder was no more memorable than smoking a cigarette. Holy crap. Factor in his heavy drinking and drugging, and it makes sense that even when he was really trying, he might not be able to remember exactly what he had done with the body of one victim out of the 100 or so killings that he had been a party to. As one cop remembers, sometimes when Toole couldn't remember something, it would have a special way of prompting himself. "God damn it," he would say, punching himself hard in the temple with a balled-up fist. "Come on now, Otis, get it together." Then, after coming up with all those details, Toole had started recanting, saying that he hadn't killed Adam after all, and that he had made the whole thing up. In addition, he seemed completely unable to lead searches to Adam's body. On Wednesday, October 26, 1983, at 9:45 p.m., Jack Hoffman took another sworn statement from Toole, this time with Buddy Terry in attendance. Earlier in the day, Toole had said that he wasn't so sure that he had done the killing. "Otis, were you lying today?" Terry asked. "Are you sure you didn't kill Adam, Walsh?" "Now, come on now, let's don't do it this way. Look at me, Otis." Toole began crying. "My mind ain't gonna take much more of this shit," he said. "Just tell the truth, that's all I want to know," said Terry. "No, I didn't kill Adam Walsh." "Are you sure, or are you not sure?" "I'm sure I didn't." "How are you sure? What makes you sure you didn't kill Adam Walsh?" "Because if I was really sure, I could come up with his body." There is no doubt about it. Otis Elwood Toole had been one tough nut to crack. As everyone knew, hardball didn't work with Toole. You had to coax him. But Hoffman and Hickman apparently used a different method. According to Steve Kendrick, who talked to him again some months later, Toole finally decided to clean him up entirely. that when they took him back to where he had disposed of the body, they had called him a son of a bitch and an asshole, and it finally made him mad. I wasn't going to tell them anything more, he said. I told them just to take me back home. And, we weren't that far from where the body was at. Well, Otis, if you were that close to Kendrick, then why'd you change your mind? Tool replied, because of the way they treated me. Oh my God. Okay, I think that's going to be it for tonight. I am going to show you who this Henry Lee Lucas guy is, though. Oh, no worries, Benny. Yeah. So here's this son of a bitch. There's him and Otis. All right, no worries, autistic. I'm going to get off here real shortly anyways. Look at there. Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole. Matricide is when you unalive your mother, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. Henry's now passed on. I believe he died in jail. Oh my God. So yeah, he was an American convicted serial killer. Lucas was convicted of murdering his mother in 1960 and two others in 1983. He rose to infamy while incarcerated for these crimes when he falsely confessed to approximately 600 other murders to Texas Rangers and law enforcement officials. Wow. Many unsolved cases were closed based on the confessions and officially attributed the murders to Lucas, and he was considered the most prolific serial killer in history. Lucas was convicted of murdering 11 people and condemned to death for a single case with a then identified victim, later identified as Deborah Jackson. And of course, just like his BFF, Otis, he recanted everything. So he died of congestive heart failure. He should have got something worse than that. And it was in 1959, he traveled to Michigan to live with his half-sister Opal. Around this time, he was engaged to marry a pen pal with whom he had corresponded while incarcerated. When Lucas's mother visited him for Christmas, she disapproved of her son's fiancé and insisted he move back to Blacksburg to take care of her as she grew older. When he refused, they argued repeatedly. These arguments escalated until January 11, 1960, when, according to Lucas, she struck him over the head with a broom, at which point he stabbed her in the neck. Lucas then fled the scene. All I remember was slapping her alongside the neck. But after I did that, I saw her fall and decided to grab her, but she fell to the floor, and then I went back to pick her up. I realized she was dead. Then I noticed that I had my knife in my hand and she had been cut. Opal, which was Lucas's sister, says Opal returned later and discovered their mother alive, but in a pool of blood. She called an ambulance, but it arrived too late. The official police report stated that Lucas's mother died of a heart attack precipitated by the assault. So he was soon arrested on the outstanding Michigan warrant. What? And then he claimed to have unalived his mother in self-defense. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison for second-degree murder. And then look at this. Imagine that. After serving 7 years, he was released. Imagine that. Of course. Disgusting. Yeah, he was. Oh, no worries, Hila. Yeah, it is gross. The stuff that he says, like I told you guys, I did read the book, and because like he was a serial killer that I never heard of, and wow, the stuff that he did and confessed to was disgusting. There's interviews of him smoking and having a heyday with all the police, in the police department, telling all the stuff that he did. It was gross. I remember seeing that. I'm just like, holy shit, really? There's a movie as well. It's called Henry. I remember watching the beginning of it, and then I was like, nope, I couldn't do it. There's like interviews and stuff like that with him, and it's just apparently the cops liked him. I was like, what? I heard what he did to his mother. It's so disturbing. To be let out 10 years later for an 11-year-old mother, kill her in minutes. Look at those fucking idiots. The deadliest duo in U.S. history, Otis Toole and Henderson. Yeah, it's on Netflix. There he is. Piece of shit.
This is Henry Lee Lucas.
This is only about 5 minutes long. He just acts like he was describing. I know, yeah. Like the one part where I was reading in the book, and he was describing what he did to this one. I think he was in a war or something. I believe that's what it was in Vietnam, and he took one of their girls and had actually tied one leg to a tree and the other to a truck, and then drove. You know what I'm saying? So that was pretty messed up. He did a lot of horrible things. Then again, he's also a huge liar. They do look inbred, absolutely. This is only 5 minutes, so I'm just going to play it and see what they say.
Between 1960 and 1983, he killed over 600 people. The disappearance of 82-year-old Kate Rich sparked a manhunt in Texas. prime suspect was Henry Lee Lucas, who was already in custody since June 11, 1983, for illegal possession of a weapon by a felon. Lucas had more than a few run-ins with the law. He was born to an alcoholic father and a prostitute mother who would allegedly force him to watch sometimes. At the age of 10, he got into a fight with his brother that resulted in him losing an eye to infection. In 6th grade, he dropped out of school and ran away from home, drifting around Virginia until 1904, convicted on over a dozen counts of burglary and sentenced to 4 years in prison. On January 11, 1960, he killed his own mother with a knife after she hit him over the head with a broom. He claimed it was an act of self-defense, but was sentenced to 20 to 40 years. Due to prison overcrowding, he was released after only 10. Eventually, he met a 15-year-old girl who he convinced to run away with him. She allegedly left a truck stop after getting into some vehicle. However, in 1983, he confessed to killing her along with 82-year-old Kate. After confessing, he took law enforcement to the scene of the crime, where he showed them a stove he burned Kate in and spot he buried Becky. They eventually dug up both spots he pointed out. In November, Lucas gained global attention as he started confessing to more killings. He claimed to have murdered over 100 people, so the Texas Rangers established a task force. The task force went on to clear 213 unsolved cases directly due to his confessions. Because of this, he received preferential treatment rarely offered to convicts, was given a strawberry milkshake every day, and offered his men to smoke.
I remember watching these interviews and stuff, and it pissed me off because he literally got to sit there, Henry did, and hang out with the cops, and they all liked him. He got cigarettes, he got burgers, he would have milkshakes, and it was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Getting out 10 years after unaliving your own mother to do all this again. What that poor 14-year-old girl went through, what he did to her, oh my God. Ugh. I don't even want to get into it. I remember this guy, there was belief that maybe he lied about how many victims. He lied and took blame for some victims who were not actually his. Yeah, exactly, Benita. Absolutely. And that's why with the Texas Rangers, it made them look stupid and they lost all their credibility. Yeah, he is running in hell. He did love the attention. Yep.
The more he confessed, the better he would, eventually meeting with over 1,000 police officers from all over the country, all with the hope of Lucas confessing to an unsolved murder in their town. Lucas would frequently take the officers to crime scenes and tell them things only the killer would know. He claimed incarcerated helped him to remember, once stating Jesus came down and visited him in his cell, telling him to confess as it would bring solace to the families of his victims. He was eventually convicted of 11 homicides and sentenced to multiple lives in prison. However, after confessing to the murder of Deborah Jackson, who was known at the time simply as Orange Socks, he faced the death penalty. His defense team was incredibly frustrated by him, as the night she was murdered, he had a time card for his job in Florida. Nowhere near the crime was committed in Texas. Nonetheless, in court he maintained that he was indeed the murderer. His lawyer has later claimed Lucas told him that he did not murder Orange Socks, but wanted to commit legal suicide by way of execution because he felt horrible for killing his 15-year-old girlfriend, Becky Powell. Lucas got his way, smiled all the way to the police car after sentencing. By this time, Hugh Ainsworth, the investigator who had worked with Ted Bundy and had been talking to Lucas at the beginning of his confessions, started to connect the dots. Not only did he not seem like other serial killers he had worked with, but he was consistent. He didn't murder in any particular pattern. He didn't have a type of victim. And the frequency of his murders were almost impossible. Because Henry's killings took place all over the country and just days apart, he would have had to travel non-stop. In one specific case, he would have had to travel 55 miles per hour for almost 2 days without stopping to commit both murders. Hugh Ainsworth also interviewed Henry with a team of Japanese filmmakers. While filming, Lucas was caught saying he had killed in Japan as well. When asked how he got to the island country, he claimed to have driven. Around the same time Ainsworth published his findings in the paper, a well-loved district county, Vic Fizell, was also suspicious and brought Henry in for questioning. Away from his friends at the task force, he quickly pulled back on his confessions, eventually having a press conference where he publicly renounced almost all of them. Unfortunately, this came at a huge cost to Vic Fizell, whose life was made hell by the Texas Rangers. Vic had broken the unspoken code among law enforcement. He had gone against his coworkers, exposing their willingness to take any confession, showing crime scene evidence and details that they shouldn't have, which he used to bolster his confessions, and just lazy police work. There was a multi-part documentary that played on TV claiming Vic was a crooked cop. He was arrested shortly after for taking bribes, among other things. The FBI even went as far as to force local lawyers to claim they had paid him off. But of course, none of this was true. And the jury stood behind later documentary makers and got a record $58 million settlement. After this, Henry Lee Lucas stopped confessing to murders, and as he was no longer beneficial to the Texas Rangers, he was sent to death row. While on death row, he desperately wanted out, claiming to have only killed his mother, and as it was only his confessions connecting him to other crimes, Texas Governor George W. Bush decided there wasn't enough evidence to execute Lucas, and did something he had never done before, reducing his death sentence to life in prison. Henry died of heart failure on March 12, 2001. It's unknown how many people Lucas actually killed. All that we're certain of is the murder of his mother. DNA has helped solve many of the cases, and it's unfortunate that negligence from law enforcement allowed the true killers to roam free.
You watch a documentary about his little bit of all the. Yeah, did you see him sitting there smiling with all like day? No, he felt fuck all for anybody exactly.
Do you see this war behind me?
I was just gonna say that
my
to
twin
you.
brother Rasmus got this.
Say that too. That Bush isn't a piece of crap too. I'm sure there's a whole bunch more stuff. What about? Oh, wait this. All right, here's a short little interview by Otis Toole.
This is Otis Toole.
I'm not sure if we watched this or not.
The law has judged sane, currently serving a prison term of over 300 years at Stark Penitentiary in Florida. He granted us an interview.
That is, what do you prefer in life? Sex or fire? Or I like both. I like both. Yeah, so maybe it is. There it is. I'm what you call power mediator. A power mediator can be most anything, but I'm what you call a power mediator. I like to see a whole city burned down. A whole city. I like to see the whole city. Like the tallest building, I can see it. I see a whole thing. So, what do you feel when you see it? What do you feel? Yeah. Sexual. Sexual. Yeah. Yeah. Like, you know when you're excited to pleasure, if you are a serial killer, you can't really stabilize. But if it's done in a pattern or some kind of way, you know, it's a pattern. And you kind of different ways. There ain't no pattern. I mean, you do more than one the same kind of way. But if you change the pattern, see, otherwise, if you really do things like that. There ain't no pattern if you do it this kind of ways. That's why they have different numbers, you say. It's a different pattern, different figures, different patterns.
Is it hard?
Oh my god, this guy is fucked. You got the chills and the ick. Him laughing is gonna give me nightmares. Pure evil, both men are freaking psychopaths. Easy to blame Adam's death on these two, and remember, they even tried to blame Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah, they did. They really did. It's disgusting. I mean, they still don't know who did it. I've got some ideas, and I know you do. I know you do too, Sayla. Like, I believe Megan. This guy is like, wow.
Kill.
And they can never really. A person's a killer anyhow. It don't make a difference who it is. If you stump on buggy slums, so and then you said somebody. It's just like butchering a hog to save a cow. Ain't no difference. It's just a no different. Put your little bit of barbecue sauce on. You gotta Tavern and get it roasted. Not unless you want it raw.
Remember the first time? The first few times?
Ain't nothing said. Just like I said, just like talking to things, just like that. Once you get into it, ain't nothing to it. Just like drinking a cup of coffee, smoking cigarette. Once you get into the habit, you do it more and more. It's just a steady thing. I mean, some people do it different, you say. Some of them hate women, some of them hate men. You got some of what you call bum age, you say. Different kind of people, you know. Only kind of person I never killed. I never killed a child.
You have news from Henry?
Like she said. But I loved him in the hate. Kill that bitch out of ketchup. That's good.
Okay, I've had enough. This guy is, wow. I surely believe Megan's so easy to use, these sick bastards. And say open shut, but it's not open and shut at all. Exactly. Megan is the key to what really happened. Her stories, her DNA, her life, because of her father. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right? And he's sitting there with that. We could try to understand what the hell he's saying. The subtitles don't work because nobody can understand them. I understand how he was saying something about a child. Then he said murder is nothing. And then laughing about it. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, same here, Benita. I have to every time. Yeah, her DNA is the key. And yeah, they keep losing it. Yeah, right. You're exactly right. Interesting how her father does not want her to poke into this anymore. She can blow this wide open. I can't wait till she does because something, it's not right. And you can't just keep losing her DNA. Like, come on now. That guy is disgusting. They're both disgusting. So we're getting close to the end of this book. Every time I say that, it goes on and on and on, but that's all right. A couple more Mondays. Have you seen the small town drama mini? No, I haven't. I'll have to check that out. I'm watching my go-to now. Is oh my god! So I've been watching Bad Girls Club, and I am telling you, season 2 is the absolute most funniest season ever. This girl Tanisha on it. She was pissed. Okay, so her housemates decided they were going to get drunk and stay up all night. So they kept waking up Tanisha. Tanisha's like, yeah, motherfucker. So she gets up, gets pots and pans, starts stomping around the whole damn house, stomping her feet, banging these pots and pans, going, I couldn't sleep because y'all. Now y'all can't sleep because of me. And went all around the fucking house. Oh my god, it was hilarious. It was funny. Just say that. Okay? Yeah. That's what I would do. I got to show you that part because it was hilarious. How do you spell her name? I'll leave on a funny note. I just want the part where she goes nuts. It's hilarious. She was putting up with crap from these girls. The best of Tanisha Thomas. She was funny. This girl was hilarious. She was the best one on this whole show. I just want to show the part where she freaked out. She's funny as hell. She's what made Bad Girls Club. I started watching Dead Like Me. Oh yeah, I watched like the first season of that. I'm watching Bad Girls Club. It's on Hulu. No, it's not. Is it? Wait. I can't remember what the hell it's on. That was so hilarious. I grew up in both small towns and huge city, but in the 60s and 80s, I lived in small town. I don't like it. All right, we'll watch something funny. So this is why I love this girl. She's hilarious, and she doesn't. Oh my god, she doesn't like people touching her stuff. Okay, so she'll sit there, and if you touch her stuff, look the hell out. Like she just pops off. But when she pops off, it's hilarious. It's the funniest shit I've ever seen.
Oh, is it a trick? Nah. They set it up. There's voodoo evidence. When I eat it, I'm gonna turn pig. Oh, well, I'm already a pig. Well, I'm turning to something else.
Well, this pillow's comfy. Pimp down. I need to strippers everywhere because she's that crazy bitch.
Tanita. What's up, man? Tanita? You sure it's not fat bitch? You sure it's not fat bitch? You sure that's not my name? She called fat all she want. I'm fat and I'm proud and I'm P-H-A-T, pretty hot and mother tempting. She better kiss my ass, my fat ass. I said to Hannah, because I was in the other room living, you feel me? I'm a woman for my word. I'm from Brooklyn, sweetie. I don't play no games. I don't lie. And I'm not a bitch to with. You see my face? I'm not a bitch to with, because I'm easy. Bitch, get the I should fix your eyes. Nah, you good. You
Okay, this part's funny. So Tanisha decides she's gonna make a little doughboy out of clay, okay? And one of the girls fucks with it, and she just goes off. That's why I love her. She is fat. She'll give a shit. She's like, yeah, you have a fat ass that has an FHAT. I just love her. She made this show, man.
pain. Practice up by the seat. Today's my day, and I expect breakfast in bed, followed by lunch, followed by a 4-course dinner, followed by dessert. That'll be a perfect birthday.
Why does she sleep so long?
Because she's a crack whore. Her body needs time to recuperate.
If you need a fix, you can go to Dolly. She got all the crack. Put it up her ass. Boil it at the plate. Got the body of a pencil. And do a little bit of crack.
Hi, Tanisha from the Bad Girls Club. And my New Year's resolution is to stop popping off. And I'm the next Lauryn Hill Khalees slash Miss Lyricist, because yeah, I did it to my sisters.
This is the best birthday little thing to do ever.
What targets do you guys want to take?
Let me see which one looks like Darlene.
Oh my god!
Oh,
You look like Foxy Brown with that.
come share this cake. Is this not chocolate cake in the middle?
Ice cream cake.
They played me. This is no cake. Where's the cake? Isn't this chocolate cake? When it comes to food, it's serious business. No, for real. What's the name of it? What's the name of the? Oh, the original ice cream cake. The original ice cream cake? Is the cake? Cake! Where's the cake? You!
See how she's freaking out because they got her an ice cream cake instead of a chocolate cake? Now wait, I hope they show the part where they fuck with her doughboy.
Man, need CPR.
Maybe the ice cream or.
I know what y'all need. Ta-da, like that. Popping, yo.
Not like popcorn.
Popcorn from Connecticut.
What?
It's popcorn from Connecticut. Yo, Cordelia, where you at, home? See, bitch? Oh my God! Jesus! Oh my God! Make me want it. Look at the devil. She takes souls for Satan. I believe that. I'm sticking to that. I know it sounds crazy. That girl's a devil. And you have on your favorite colors, red and black. You scary, yo. I ain't mess with you. Okay, I'm sorry. Because I don't want to turn to nothing, yo. I don't want to turn. I know you can turn me into some. All you got to do is call the devil. I ain't with it. I know I ain't gonna do it. I'm sorry, yo. Bring it, son! Bring it, son! Pop the bring it! Pop up!
I'll be damned if I let this bitch run out here. See, Jen ain't gonna be nice no more.
Boom! The doors come out. Barreling down and come shut. Coming down the aisle. And I'm just like, she's like, son.
Just sit and write your poetry. You know, you're very good at writing. Why don't you?
My poetry?
Yeah, sit and do that. Just express your feelings into a book.
Why is that? Why? No, that is very disrespectful to me. My is dismantled. He is broken up, and he had a big penis on him. I feel so
disrespected. He's dead.
It's okay.
Naveen, he's still gone. He don't have no eyes. Where's his arm? Y'all problem messing with Clayboy. He didn't do. I don't know what. I don't know. Mash up everybody in here until somebody tell me who the messed with him, yo. Clayboy really didn't deserve this. Sleeping around being a skeet is not being bad. It's bad for your vagina. It's so nasty in this house. I cannot make this house is sticky. This has syrup all over. Look. Walk back to the phone. You know what? Yeah. Y'all gonna make me lose my mind.
Okay, this is going to be the best. She's going to walk around with pots and pans because she's pissed because the house is just disgusting. They kept her up all night long. So she hasn't slept. Right now it's 6 a.m. and this is when she goes all over the place waking them up. This is the best.
Pots! Talia! Get up! Get the hell! Get up! Get up! Clean up the house! Clean up! I'm tired of this! I'm tired of all of y'all bitches! I'm tired of y'all! I'm tired of y'all! I'm tired! Get up! Get up! I'll buy back! I'll buy back! I'll buy back! Get the up! Tired of y'all! What better revenge? Wake them up while they're drilling in their beds with a nice old big hearty marching band. I'm not done. You think I'm done? And over to the fat lady sings. Let me hear you say, wop, 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 wop. I didn't get no sleep because of y'all. Y'all not gonna get a sleep because of me. Wop, 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 wop. Get them up. I love juice. Juice makes me happy. Yes, it's sweet and has a lot of different flavors. Nothing like a cold cup of juice. Nothing.
What the Tanisha?
They put hot sauce in my juice.
I can't breathe. Now they put hot sauce in her fucking juice. Oh my god.
Tanisha, stop it.
It's not.
I needed this look right now.
Don't get up, shawty. The devil called. He wants y'all to come back home. Oh, I'm starving. Sorry. What's up? I get some fries.
You're a brat, Tanisha.
I need something to eat. Isn't there McDonald's there? Oh my God, I'm starving. I got the whole red hole.
That's fine.
Hurry, I want to eat that. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm gonna eat my dress for the laundry, but where is it? I can't help Andre thinking about not eating. Quite frankly, if I was a friend, she'd hate me because it'd be fried chicken and waffles in her face every day. Macaroni and cheese, cornbread, potato salad, collard greens. I'm hungry.
That was the best wake-up call ever. Did you hear what she said? She's like, the devil called. He wants y'all to go home. Oh my god. She never hit anybody on the show ever. No. She would sit there and she'd get in fight. Oh fuck, she'd pop off. But it was the funniest shit ever. So this is called the Bad Girls Club, and that would be season 2. Seriously, if you watch the whole thing, you'd be like, okay, yeah, I get it. Just every episode, she's so funny. This is the best thing ever. It's called the Bad Girls Club. That's what I'm watching right now. Right now I'm on season 3, and season 3 has got oh my god, Natalie Nunn in it. Oh my god, so she's going all over the place like, I run LA, I run LA. So she's the next crazy bitch. She's already punched someone in the face, and you're not supposed to hit anybody or you go home. For some reason, she's still there. Is this a bad girl? Yeah, you've got to watch it. So watch season 2. It's the best. Oh my god, it's the hands down the best one ever. I'm on season 3, but that one's good too because it's got Natalie Nunn in it, and she just pops off all the time as well. But then she goes, "I run LA." It's hilarious. I want to watch it again because I was yelling when I was watching this. My son will go, "Hey, mom, what, Leland?" He goes, "I can't sleep because you're all," and he starts stomping his feet because he knows I almost die laughing at that part. You gotta watch it. Season 2, The Bad Girls Club. Oh, it is the best. It's good. Wait, it might be on Amazon Prime. I think that's where I watched it. Yeah, it is. It's funny. This is my go-to after like a bad day or, one of these that I do when it's really, really hard when we do the true crime. That's what I found because I remember I watched like an episode or something like that and I was like, oh yeah, this is okay. So it's reality TV with girls gone wild, but they pop off and it's funny as hell. Yeah, just try it. Bad Girls Club season 2. Or if you want to watch season 1 first, I mean, there was a crazy bitch in that one too named Ripsy. Oh my god. But the season 2, hands down, best one ever. It's got Tanisha in it. Wait, I'm in season 4, I think. Yeah, I'm in season 4. Shit, they're flying right by. I'm going to get you guys all into it, and then we can just sit there and watch clips and have a good night laughing our ass off. There, I feel better now that all this is out of my system right now. Oh, fuck, she's hangry, all right. You cannot let that girl starve. No. All right, I'm going to get off of here. I have to get up early, and I'm pretty sure I have... What am I doing? I don't know. There's something I'm supposed to do, and I can't remember now. I'm sure I'll remember. All right, you guys have a great night. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope you enjoyed that Bad Girls Club stuff. Go look it up. It is pretty funny. Bye.